I redesigned and animated Hogwarts house's seals in 3D to give them a new and fresh look. Here's how I did it. I really like the concept of the 4 houses because each one represents different ideas, concepts and ambitions of the respective students. These are really well represented in the animal and color scheme they use. Gryffindor's red, for example, represents bravery and nerve, while Slytherin's green represents ambition and leadership. Although each house will maintain their color palette and animal figure, I want them to have a cohesive visual look. I'm using the latest update of the logos. The Hogwarts Legacy team designed this wonderful illustration for the game, and they look absolutely fantastic. So, after deciding I'm going to use this as a base for my design, I start modeling the different animals. As you can see in the reference design, the figures are flat, and I want to add a chiseled effect to the animals, so it resembles much more to an old shield design like the ones from the books. Really all I'm doing in this process is taking elements I think work really well from previous design and adjusting them the way I need. Notice how the animal models are completely flat, even if I said I wanted them to look chiseled. Don't worry, I will show you how I did that a bit later. For now, let's continue and model the seals. This process is very easy too. I modeled the main shape, added edge loops to make the curves rounder, and then extruded the edges to add the key details. My original idea was to maintain the same seal design for all the 4 houses, but each of the animals have different silhouettes. That's why each respective seals works really well with each animal. So instead, I'm going to unify everything with the textures. After some thinking, I really like the idea of using different color stained glass as the visual component that unifies the project. Let's get into it. My software of choice for this step is Substance Painter. I'm going to work on one of the models, and when I'm happy with the final result, I will create smart materials to use them in every other seal easily. This is actually a really helpful tip if you're not used to doing it. If you need to texture tons of assets with a specific material you have created, just group everything and create a smart material. This way you just have to drag and drop the material on the mesh, and then adjust it if needed. Starting with Gryffindor, I'm doing the stained glass design procedurally, with mainly 2 layers and a Voronoi textured mask. I first set a base color layer and duplicate it, then changed the color of the second one and added the mask. I set the style to random color, so it gives me different variations of colors similar to the ones I chose. I added a layer on top with just height and roughness channels activated, to give some interesting reflection effects, and of course finish the material with some dust mask on the edges and surface of the mesh. With my main material ready, I incorporated them into the other models and adjusted both the colors and the seed of the Voronoi noise texture. This way I can generate some randomness between all the designs. I used a cool trick to generate the animal's fake shading I want. First, I UV unwrapped the models using Project from View in Blender. Then, in Photoshop, I added an inside gradient stroke with the shape bars style and increased the size for each shape. This generates a black and white map that we can use in Blender, but to get a better result, I first transform it into a normal map in Photoshop. The last details are 2 different ornament designs I found online that I think fits perfectly with my aesthetic. With this, the overall shape looks better, and it will add a lot of value in the animation process later. The bottom part of the design is covered with parchment paper reading each house's names, referencing the type of paper the students use in Hogwarts. I'm quite happy with the gothic style I ended up with. Time for animation. I want to simulate the apparition animation shown both in the movies and in the game, as a way to transition between the different seals in my final video. The best and fastest way I could think of doing this was creating a torus shape and making one of the sides much thinner. Duplicate and scale it multiple times until you end up with kind of a rounded shape. Now I animated both the scale and the rotation in the local Z axis to get this result. The trick is done when adding the texture from the seals and cranking up the motion blur values in the render settings tab. To animate the next part, I start with the shield and slowly add different elements to the design. The shield animation is made with just a few keyframes in the scale and rotation values, adjusting the timing with the apparition effect. For the metallic parts, I mixed my material with a transparent one and animated the mask values that define which material shows in the final render. This process is also the same for both the animal and the parchment paper of its house. I did the whole animation process of just the Gryffindor shield so that I can copy and paste those exact movements to the other 3 houses. The final animation are slight offsets in the position of the elements, so it gives a much more natural effect to the overall concept. I added 3 point lights to highlight some shining areas, but as I said before, the most important aspect of this part is the timing. If it's smooth enough, it will look much better. The last step is arranging everything in After Effects, adjusting the colors and adding the sound design, also making the transitions between each render as smooth as possible. I hope you like the final result. I'm personally really happy with the stained glass material and the overall animation. Please leave some feedback below the video if you liked it. It really helps to make YouTube recommend my videos to new people. Thanks for watching, bye!